Well, I understand that someone probably behind me is making rude faces. Um, Nonetheless, I'll go on undeterred. I was asked to speak a word about how it is that I got into teaching and what are some strategies that I find useful and some that not so much so. Um, I don't really have a lofty story about how I got into teaching. When I moved to Kansas City, I interviewed in several different things. I came from a clinician's position, probably the job of my dreams when I lived in Ohio. So when life moved me to Kansas City, I went looking, of course, for a replacement for this job of my dreams. And as I interviewed, I saw that I wasn't going to find that. But nonetheless, I didn't consider myself an educator. I considered myself a clinician, and that's what I pursued. But there was something about Research College when I interviewed with the dean here. She was, it's Dr. Barbara Clements. She was a genuinely persuasive and genuine person. And she said the college was going through quite a bit of turmoil right then, and they could use a mental health person both on the staff, on the teaching staff, as well as within. And she really hoped that I would consider it. And I sort of was amused by that at the time, but kept thinking about it again and again. And it was really her genuineness, I believe, honestly saying, I think you match the skills not just for an educator, but for this group right now. And I felt very wanted and needed, and I thought she was really cool. So I told myself, well, you're going to give this a try for a couple of years. You've never taught before. Give this a go. You'll have a new experience. And that was 20 years ago, and haven't had a need to change that other than to have my own practice. And that is pretty cool because I can both do education and I can still be a clinician through my private practice, which is, really the best of both worlds for me. So the real thing that brought me into teaching was a person genuinely saying, I need your skills here. And I had an attachment and affiliation to her that was pretty immediate. So that's not real philosophical or scholastic or anything. It was the right person, the right time. Just a combination of things that came together right then that got me here. And keeping here is probably, I would say, the environment. This place is it's about something. We treat students and each other well here. Our dean is the best. We have the best administration in North America. Well, I've never been all over North America, but just about. So the administration is good. The affiliation with Rockhurst and with HCA. I get to teach with one of my best friends, Michelle. There are just so many things about the environment that make this a healthy place for me to teach. And the students, especially the AO, you started this AO program, in 91, and I've been attached to it and with it ever since and feel real maternal about it. So I have a big investment in that. And so you put all of those things together and you have a working environment that I don't know that you could duplicate. And in addition, then I get to have a private practice and be a clinician. So in my mind, I've got it figured out, at least for now. The teaching strategy, real quickly, that I'll say, both the one that's the best and the worst for me is storytelling. I learned that way. Primitive man learned that way. Egyptians had hieroglyphics and told stories. So this is the most universal way of imparting information is through story. And as I'm from the country, storytelling was a big part of my life, and since I learned that way, I started doing that. And I found that with patients, if I could say, that reminds me, and weave that into a story, whether it was exact or whether I made it up a bit, was real useful because they listen with different eyes and different ears when they hear a story, and we process it in a different part of our brain. So I started doing that and found that you could entertain pretty easily with stories, and I'd have to say that sometimes I got a little more caught up in the entertainment of the story, not really realizing the power of the story itself. So that if I wasn't really aware of the points of the story, then I wasn't teaching, I was doing entertainment. And those were some hard lessons to come by. So that now, if I use a story with a client or in class, unless I'm testing it, but if I use that story, that means that I have completely thought it through. Chances are I have tested it out and asked the group what they think of it, and what they'll recall from it, because a story will be remembered, and it better be remembered for what you intended. So that's my favorite teaching strategy, but it's also one I've learned to be the very most cautious about. And I've already talked a whole lot, or else I'd like to tell you a story. But maybe I'll tell you one another time.